What's up, guys? We are way behind schedule on this project. This is the dead gecko enclosure. I'm trying to get as much done on it today as I can. And over the next few days, I get off work at like 3, so I have a good few hours to get some stuff done. But yeah, we're just going to get right into it. I want to get these dead geckos into their forever home and not in this awful temporary 18 by 18 by 24. So the game plan is we are going to use the rest of the cork flats that I have and position those to fill in some of this void space, and then we're going to come back in with a little bit of driftwood. But yeah, I'm just going to get started because I want to get as much done as possible. We now have functional doors. I made this little thing to be able to access the drainage layer. So that just opens up. I can stick a little teeny tiny water pump down to the bottom. This will all be leca down here in the drainage section. And then pump out the water, or just... I'm being bothered. I'm being harassed while I'm trying to film this. But yeah, I did that, and then other than that, the background is finally done. So we've added a few more pieces of driftwood, obviously this manzanita, some other little things, and we've finished the rest of the carbonized cork. You may be able to see, oh, you can't really see it here, but there are gaps and cracks all over the place between the carbonized cork, and that's done intentionally so we can stuff mosses, whether that be just kind of damp sphagnum moss to allow epiphytes to root into, or like live mosses to fill in the background. So this whole thing will eventually be alive. He's trying to trip me. He was just laying down under me. Jeez Louise, Doug. That being said, we are finally ready to plant this thing, and I'm so excited. This is going to be almost exclusively kind of rare African plants. A lot of it is going to be Malagasy plants, or plants that are just also native to Madagascar. But some of the plants in here are very obscure, and I'm excited to have them in an enclosure so I can showcase them and kind of... They're sitting in a tent. You can see that big tent behind me. I don't get to look at them unless I walk into the tent, and even then there's so many things that I'm not really paying attention to them. So it's going to be really, 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 really nice to have a way to showcase all of these obscure plants that I've collected over the years. Alright, I found some charcoal. We're back at it. I made a ton of ABG mix and we're ready to plant this thing. I've pulled out all my African plants and I'm realizing I have significantly fewer than I thought I did. But the first plant we're going to add is this beautiful, beautiful terrestrial African aroid. It looks more yellow on the camera. It's actually a lot more green in person. But this, if you know your rare stuff, this is Colcasia mannii. It is a terrestrial species that gets kind of a small kind of shrub almost, but it's sort of low growing. It's got crazy veins. You can see those super dark veins. Like I said, it's a lot more green in person. But this is going to be going in the bottom of the enclosure, down somewhere way down there. And yeah, I'm going to clean off the roots and get this thing in. Alright, so I've got charcoal. I've mixed up a bunch of ABG mix. It looks a lot better now that I've got the bark and the charcoal and stuff that I wanted. And it's time to plant this thing. So we're going to throw some African aroids, some cool, funky stuff in there. I've got an African begonia. I need a few more African begonias. I really want Montes elephantines in here. But starting off, we've got Colcasia mannii. If you know what this is, you probably know your stuff. This is a very kind of obscure, rare plant. This one came from a botanical garden. And I know like 3 people who have it. This one, funny enough, was a gift from Cohen Brantley. It was kind of like a housewarming gift. It just showed up, and he was like, "Hey, did you get that plant?" I was like, "Holy crap!" Which is wild because it is one of the rarest plants in my collection. Very, very cool species. It's like kind of a low-growing terrestrial species, so it's going to go in the bottom of the terrarium, or vivarium, whatever you want to call it. Next up, I've got this very large piece of... This is Rhaphidophora africana. This is another very, very rare species. I think there's like 3 or 4 species of Rhaphidophora endemic to Africa, or native to Africa. I don't know if they're only in Africa. This definitely only lives in Africa.
The other one that I know of is Bogneri, named after Josef Bogner, and I wouldn't be surprised if he actually collected this one as well, because he did a lot of stuff in Africa. Very cool guy, from what I understand. But since it's so big, I'm going to have to chop it, and fortunately this came off of a moss pole. So what I think I'm going to do is kind of plant the base of it in the very bottom of the enclosure and let it climb up the base of the big tree over here. And we'll take we'll like let that kind of, the runner wrap around some of those branches and let that get nice and established. I'll stick some moss in there so it can kind of grab on. And then we'll find a nice other place for the top cut section so we can kind of spread this around and get more bang for our buck. And then I've got a couple more props. You can see these are just kind of wet sticks that are nice and rooted. One of them had a leaf. This one had a leaf that I accidentally broke off while I was trying to clean it off. But I propped that plant a while ago for some friends that like African plants, that like the obscure stuff. They've since gotten those plants. I believe all of them got those plants, so I'm just going to take these extras that I have and throw them in there. And last but not least, we have Begonia prismatocarpa. This is a beautiful, beautiful little rambling species that grows, I believe, as an epiphyte. We're going to be growing it probably as an epiphyte, but there's like 3 plants in here, so I want to try to cut it and spread it out as much as possible. I don't want it to just take over the entire enclosure, but this is a really good looking plant, and it's good like wall cover essentially, and I have a ton of little tiny wall planters scattered around back there, so we're going to try to jam some moss into some gaps, maybe use the pots, and then spread this little guy out and see where it does best. We've got a few more plants. First up, we've got, it's kind of hard to tell, it's still in a bag. This is Pothos scandens. This is a really cool African species. It's actually native to Madagascar as well, so that's very, very nice. He sent 5 of them. This is awesome. So this, a lot of people think of like golden pothos as being pothos. That's not pothos. It's not even in the same subfamily as pothos, so it's not very closely related. This is what actual pothos looks like. We've got these lobed leaves where the petiole of the leaf has this like very funky, it's not focusing on the plant itself. But I'll show you another one in a second where the lobes are very different on the petiole. But very, very unique kind of climbing habit. Scandens gets a good bit bigger than the other species I have, but look how much he sent. He sent like 5 or 6 cuttings. Not all of them are rooted. It looks like most of them just have little nubs on them. So some of them will probably go right into the enclosure, and some of them will go into tubs and stuff to get them rooted. And then right here we've got Pothos repens. So you can see on this growth that the lobes are crazy looking. It's a beautiful little species. This one's a little bit more delicate, longer, thinner leaves. The bigger leaves will have lobes like that. You can see most of the lobes are broken off. It's just older foliage. And then we've got this very long runner. But yeah, this is awesome. This will be really, really good to kickstart some really very unique growth in this enclosure. And last but not least, we've got a bigger plant. This is a new species of Colocasia. As far as I know, myself and the person who sent me this plant are the only people not in Africa who have it. So very not common plant. Look at that. Very light, velvety growth. Oh, it is velvety. That's awesome. But it's a climbing species of Colocasia. The other species of Colocasia we have in there right now is a terrestrial species, that Manii. So this will be a nice little additional. It's a beautiful plant. The veins are so cool. Look at that. Almost like a Monstera, but very distinctly Colocasia. You can see that vein coloration is so freaking cool. So that's going to go somewhere in there. Right, so I went ahead and added all of the plants, the Colcaceas, the Pothos species, the Begonia prismaticarpa, the Rhaptophora africana. They're all in there, and it looks great. And you might be thinking, you know, Harrison, that's not very many species. It doesn't look that full. And to that, I would say, it doesn't look very full. So I am now torn on two options. This is gonna be the end of the video, but I still have to figure out whether or not I'm going to order a bunch of more really rare African plants. I say really rare. African plants are not easy to come by. The plants that I want would be like Nephthydus swaini or swaini. I'm not sure the locality. Nephthydus poissonii. I think there's an Anchomene species that's from Africa. Colopsis volkensii is one that I really want. Begonia bogneri, Begonia multicelephantis. Those ones aren't too rare. Those are actually fairly easy to find. But a lot of it is just very hard to find. So I can either buy more African plants and fill this up and keep it true to African, keep it true to the Malagasy geckos and all that kind of stuff, or I have a tent full of Southeast Asian and South American plants. So I'm looking at, I've got Anthurium pallidiflorums and stuff that are staring at me and talking to me like the Green Goblin mask. I've got a big species of Medinilla that I've been really wanting to use in a vivarium. I've got a ton of other climbing species like Rhaphidophora, Megasperma, and Verstigii that would look great in vivariums. And those would help to fill up the tank, but they're not African, so I would be losing that kind of feel to it. It's not truly African. So I'm very on the fence. In my later years, I'm leaning more toward not doing things all from the same continent or something like that because it's so limiting. I like to make things that look good. That's how I've always been. And then I don't know where along the line I decided that I needed to be true to form in terms of only South American plants or only Southeast Asian plants because it is so limiting. And it's cool to an extent, but it kind of ruins things. When you're gunning for an aesthetic point of view, the biological limitations of only certain localities can kind of ruin a feel. It can also contribute to the feel. So if you're only keeping, Thai Malaysian Peninsula plants and you've got a Thai Malaysian Peninsula gecko, you can make it look very similar to what it would look like in that natural habitat. But this is a giant vivarium. I want it to look good. So I'm not going to plant anything right now, but I'm going to see if I can find some more African plants, and then we're going to go from there. So as tempting as it is to throw all those plants in there, I think I'm going to wait, let these plants get rooted and established. I have a few things left to do. I need to throw in the leaf litter, so I'll do that before I give you guys like a nice view of the enclosure. I've got to do the screens, and I need to order a light. I think I'm going to go with Spectral Designs lighting. So I have to order a custom light for that, so that's going to take a few weeks. So adding more plants, adding the geckos, adding the proper lighting and all that kind of stuff is all going to be in another video. But thank you guys so much for watching. Let me show you guys real quick what this thing looks like. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And hopefully I will see you guys next time.